Am I the a-hole for giving the vacation of my ex-fiancée 24 female dreams to her sister and husband? I, 26 male, met my ex's sister in high school when she started dating my best friend. During our senior year, she got pregnant and they married soon after. After high school, I joined the military. I served 6 years before getting medically discharged. Ex and I started dating. I got a good job that would have me leave a couple times a month up to 10 days at a time. While doing last-minute wedding planning, a text from her sister popped up asking, "Have you told Opie about what you did with your ex? If you don't do it tonight, I will tomorrow." I asked her what that was, and she tried to play it off. I kept pressing her and she said that during their bachelorette party, she ran into him but nothing happened. It was an obvious lie, so I went through her phone when she fell asleep. There was text and pictures with him all the way back from when we started dating. They would hook up every time I went on work trips. Then I sent proof to my phone. I woke her up, kicked her out, and ended the relationship. She did a cheater's script. The usual excuses, but I told her Stephanie looked a lot like her ex-boyfriend and showed her one of the screenshots of them together in bed. She started to cry and I gently got her out the door. I canceled all wedding plans and needed some help calling guests to inform them the wedding was off. My friend's wife said that during the bachelorette party, she caught them sneaking away and having intimate time. When she confronted them, she gave my ex the option of coming clean to me herself, or she would do it. She did not know it was an ongoing thing. Now on to our honeymoon vacation. I had planned it so that it would be perfect for my ex. It was a 10-day trip to another country that she has always said was a once-in-a-lifetime bucket list place. There were nice hotels, amazing experiences, and overall her dream vacation. I was already out about 10 grand for the wedding, and more if I canceled the honeymoon trip. So, I made a decision to offer it up to them, since I knew that they never had a honeymoon or any real vacation since they got married young and had kids. Also, they just saved me money and time. They accepted. They were able to get the time off work and had made arrangements for the kids for the trip. My ex found out about it and she flipped out and was calling me and texting me about how much of an a-hole I am for doing that to her. How I knew that it was her dream vacation. How I ruined her life. I also got messages from her friends and some of her family that she lied to and blaming me for the breakup. Her ex even texted me saying that I'm not a real man and then threatened me. She must have gone there last night as he shouldn't have my number. I have not responded to them at all. But am I the a-hole for giving my cheating ex-fiancé's dream honeymoon to her sister and my best friend? Now for the top comments. Take the threat to the police. You owe your cheating ex literally nothing, not the a-hole. Message the ex telling her that Opie will send the full collection of screenshots, minus the photos obviously, to anyone that harasses him over it. That will shut her up real quick. She and her ex actually have the nerve to harass Opie over this? Unreal. I hope her sister will have the best time and won't stop talking about the awesome vacation for years, not the a-hole. And posts lots of pictures on Facebook. The freaking audacity. Her affair partner telling Opie he did something wrong? Look at yourself, bro. You're the one who has been getting it with somebody else's fiancé. I'm not a violent person, but that would make my blood boil. Like, I'd be debating finding this person's family, friends, and boss and sending them the screenshots minus pictures. Hey, y'all know this guy? He's threatening me after he's been sleeping with my fiancé. Just a heads up, I'm going to the cops, so y'all might not see him for a bit. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not lying for my wife in front of her friends regarding me being a stay-at-home parent? When my wife and I decided to start a family, she expressed she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. So, we made a plan and set everything up so that she could stay home during the early years. We had our first kid, but she didn't do too well being the stay-at-home parent and had a hard time with it. We still wanted our kids to have a parent at home with them, so we swapped out since her salary was close to mine. 2 kids later and I'm still the stay-at-home dad, working reduced hours remotely. For me personally, it's easier than any job I've had in the past, even the manual labor one, but I recognize that that's just my personal experience. We've touched base on the issue a few times to make sure there's no resentment, guilt, or discomfort on either of our parts. Now, one of her friends from her work invited us and other couples over for dinner. While there, the other couples were talking about childcare in general and some of the women started sharing their experiences of when they were home. My wife was talking about how she had disliked it and mentioned our arrangement, when one of the women said to me, "Oh, I know you're just itching to get back to having it easy." I responded that I already have it easy, and that for me, being a stay-at-home dad was a cakewalk compared to my office job. I didn't see the point in agreeing with something that just isn't true for me. On the way home, my wife asked why couldn't I just agree with the question and played along. I asked her if she felt bad or guilty that she had a hard time with it, and she said no. So I told her to just forget about it then, because there's no reason for me to lie to make a bunch of other people feel better, so long as it's fine between us. When she got home from work yesterday, she had some attitude, asking me if I had another easy-peasy day, and told me how all day she had to hear from her friends what a smug a-hole I was for making light of their experiences by saying it was a cakewalk. I get that for a lot of people it's hard, but I don't see why I should have to lie about it or fluff someone's ego for not feeling the same way. Am I the a-hole? Additional info. The scheduling, making appointments, taking kids where they need to be, grocery list, school stuff, making sure payments for bills came out, vehicle maintenance, organizing our date nights, finding babysitters, figuring out what needs to be done, falls on me. She keeps tracks of dates important to her family. I keep tracks of dates important to us and my side of the family. I am very detail-oriented. I've done all of that throughout our relationship. We do grocery shopping together on the weekend. I'm interested to know who did all the laundry and housework and cooking. Did this fall to Opie as well? Yes, I do the majority of housework and yard work, all cooking 5 days a week while we share it on weekends, and she only has to put the laundry away once it's already washed and folded. Not the a-hole. When you are doing something you love, it feels easy. I would be so happy if people stopped saying things like this, along with do what you love and it will never feel like work. It's simply not true. Loving something will not magically make a hard task easy, it just makes it worth it. Opie happens to find being a stay-at-home parent easy. Nowhere in the post even does he say he loves doing it. He simply says compared to his office job, it's easier. But it's true for some people. Maybe not you, but everyone is different. Just because a phrase doesn't relate to you doesn't make it untrue. I love what I do, both for a career and for my hobby. It doesn't make either of them easy. That being said, some things just come naturally to some people and childcare seems to come naturally to Opie. Not the a-hole. People were sharing their experience, and you shared yours. Simple as that. You're only allowed to share your experience if it validates theirs. We're in 2023. Anything that makes people uncomfortable should be cancelled. Opie can disagree and share his experience without the prickish delivery. I personally 100% agree with his sentiments about stay-at-home parent life. He doesn't have to play along, but should be diplomatic. Just say he really enjoys it and is happy with this balance of part-time work/childcare. End of. Imagine if you told someone that you struggled with your coursework, and you bet they are glad they already graduated and don't have to do exams anymore. A response of, oh, not for me, it was a cakewalk doesn't seem arrogant to you, like they are claiming some great superiority of intelligence and ability? This is what Opie did with his phrasing. A little bit of social skills can go a long way. I don't actually really enjoy it though. It's easier in comparison. It's not misery, but it's not wholly enjoyable. Yet that doesn't mean I'm counting down the days to get back to work for something easier, as she insinuated. Next story. Am I the a-hole for asking my sister what she expected after my daughter didn't invite her to her birthday? My 32 female daughter, 16 female, grew up extremely close to my sister, 23 female, because of how small the age gap between them is, and my sister got married in September. However, she decided to have a child-free wedding, and my daughter was not invited. My daughter was extremely upset about this, as my sister always talked about how important my daughter being at her wedding was going to be, and her wedding being child-free completely came out of left field. Recently, my daughter's 16th birthday passed, and she decided to have a small party with me, as well as her father and a couple of other close family and friends. My sister wasn't invited. And when she asked me what time she should show up, I told her that my daughter was still upset about not being invited to one of her most important events. My sister got upset, asking why I was letting my daughter punish her because she had her wedding how she wanted it. I asked what she expected, knowing how close she and my daughter are, and told her she should have known that my daughter would be upset about it. My daughter had a blast at her party, and my sister is still being passive-aggressive towards me and husband. I know it's my daughter's party, and it's supposed to be about her, but my sister's behavior is making me feel doubtful about my decision. So am I the a-hole? Edit. I did initially bring up that my daughter not being invited upset her, But my sister told she wanted the freedom to go wild at her wedding, and that my daughter would eventually get over it. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your sister got to decide how she wanted her wedding. Your daughter gets to decide how she wants her party. Tit for tat. I hope your sister learns a lesson. The way she is acting, I have a feeling she won't, but I'm sure she will get over it. It's interesting that sister's feelings are important, but the daughter/nieces aren't. Well, she will learn that actions have consequences. It's fine if she didn't want her niece at the wedding, but she can't then be surprised her niece doesn't want her around when she's still feeling hurt. You have to accept that your decisions won't be liked by everyone, but you have to live with less than perfect relationships due to that. I am all for child-free weddings. I also understand that Denise feels hurt that her aunt didn't want her there on her special day. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Your daughter was simply also having her party how she wanted. Child-free weddings are fine to have, but clearly your daughter was hurt by this, and she is allowed to be, and her feelings are valid. Your sister needs to recognize that her choice hurt your daughter. Child-free, I understand, but considering a 16-year-old you were supposedly close with as a child is an insult. I think it's very good that Opie's standing with her daughter. It kind of reminds me of that story of the 21-year-old not wanting her 20-year-old friend at her wedding because she was too young to drink. It must be a slap in the face for someone you considered a peer to suddenly deem you as a child. Sister is not an a-hole for wanting a child-free wedding, but surely this would affect their relationship. Aunt made it clear that niece is ultimately a bracket beneath her, which isn't wrong, but it's going to be obvious now in a way it wasn't before. Not the a-hole. Well done in supporting your daughter in this. Your sister got to have the wedding she wanted, and that's great for her, but her choices have consequences and it's not up to you to protect her from them. Last story. Am I the a-hole because our baby ate off our plates? Today was my brother-in-law's birthday and we had a family dinner. There was the birthday boy, his girlfriend, my husband, me, our baby, their parents, uncle and aunt. We went to a Mexican restaurant and I had steak fajitas. Our baby likes to eat off our plates. He grabbed one of my tortillas, so I tore it into strips for him. He also ate the grilled tomatoes, peppers, and onions off of my skillet and grabbed a piece of steak to suck on. Brother-in-law's girlfriend said that it was unappetizing to see our baby grabbing food off of my plate and giving her anxiety as well because she was worried he would choke. I told her to look at her own plate instead of mine. She was somewhat put out when I said that. Halfway through the meal, my husband took the baby so I could focus on my food and socialize a bit. And baby went to town on hubby's leftover chicken quesadilla. Again, brother-in-law's girlfriend said she was anxious and put off her food. My husband just shrugged at her. After dinner, everyone else was using the restroom and it was the two of us watching everyone's stuff. She told me I was very rude of her and that she was unable to enjoy her boyfriend's birthday because of our poor table manners. I said she should have focused on her boyfriend and her own meal instead of what my husband and I were doing. She said I was a very selfish person. I'm very irritated by the whole thing, but since she was so confident we were a-holes to her, were we? Not a-hole. I honestly have no idea how some people survive in the world without being offended to death. Unless the baby is 7 and licking the plates while making loud slurping noises like my husband's nieces. Lol. Girlfriend is crazy. Keep your eyes on your own food. Or if she let the baby crawl across the table and grab stuff off everyone else's plates. Yeah, that would not be okay. My sister-in-law let my nieces do that to my plate and I wasn't able to eat another bite after. Doesn't sound like the baby ate off anyone else's plate though. Not the a-hole. What did she expect? Your baby to use a knife and fork and make polite conversation? Unless the baby was stealing her food or throwing it at her, she needed to mind her own business. That is what I'm wondering. Did she say what should have been going on instead? Someone should tell her that little kids eating is never a pretty sight, and she needs to get over it. I'm also disgusted if I see babies or even kids eating. Sticking their hands in their mouth to lick off the ketchup, which is a crime by itself. They dipped their arms to the elbow in, or putting it in and out of their mouth. And then there's saliva everywhere. It's disgusting. But there's nothing you can do. So just pretend like it doesn't bother you and go on with your life. Not the a-hole. My baby practically only eats off my plate, even if I give her the exact same thing. She wants to grab it herself, from my plate. The comments about choking seems like the kind of veiled judginess you only get from non-parents who don't actually know anything about babies. Honestly, this is one of the best ways to make sure your kids aren't picky eaters from what I've seen. Put them on your lap, let them grab and sample whatever is on your plate with supervision. Way better at expanding their palate than the bland kiddie menus. Am I the a-hole? I kicked my husband's sister and her daughter out of my mother's funeral. My mother passed 20 days ago. I'm a mess. I can barely keep up with work, as well as taking care of my younger sisters who are heavily grieving. Before I talk about what went down at the funeral, I'll talk about my husband's older sister, 44. She's like a mother to him. His mother died when he was 8, so his sister basically raised him. Me and her don't agree on many things. She can be disrespectful and rude. She tries to boss me around and gets involved in my marriage a lot. She has a daughter, niece, that she uses or trains to do nasty things to me. Like when she had her daughter ruin my car paint, or when she had her hide my jewelry, or when she caused me an argument with my husband by lying, saying I banned her from her uncle's house. She's 17, so at this point she's not a kid and should be aware of what her mother's doing. But they both equally disrespect me, so I'm not surprised. My sister-in-law came to mother's funeral and brought her daughter who was wearing an inappropriate outfit and kept acting mean while me and my sisters were crying. I remember sister-in-law was sitting, loudly laughing with her daughter and playing with their phones, and then both started eating during the burial service. I was getting mad, but I ignored them. Until my niece's phone started playing the ding dong, the witch is dead. My sisters heard it several times. I walked up to her to ask about it, and she said it was just a ringtone. I asked her if she thought this was appropriate, but my sister-in-law got involved and told me it was no big deal, then asked me for a charger so they could finish the video they were watching. I kid you not, I absolutely lost it in them both. I yelled at my sister-in-law to take her daughter and leave. My brother-in-law, her husband, came to talk to me, but I blatantly told him to take his family and leave. And where's my husband? Sitting watching while I argue with almost his entire family, as they tried to get me to let it go. I refused to let them stay for a minute, and demanded they leave or get security involved. That's when my husband got involved, so I told him he could leave too if he kept defending them. They left, and everyone was watching. I felt so awful, and when I returned to my mother's house, my husband started arguing, saying that his niece is a kid, and whatever she did, I should have discussed the issue privately, not make a joke out of them and kicking his sister out, then threatened to kick him out as well, in front of everyone. He said I was looking for an excuse to disrespect his sister and his niece, and what better excuse than my mother's funeral, right? That's what he said. He said I was at fault here to think that I could mistreat his sister and niece and kick them out, then expect to get a free pass because my mother is dead, basically claiming I messed up and ruined my own mother's funeral. He called me a piece of work, then headed out. That's all that's happened. The family apologized on their behalf. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Get rid of the husband. This is the correct answer. He allowed them to mistreat you at your mother's funeral. He sucks. Yep, this is totally where I'm at too. How many of the niece's 17 years had she been pulling this disrespectful crap on you, and is still blaming you for not rolling over and taking it? No, not the a-hole. Your husband is the a-hole and weak as hell. His family are a-holes. Go to just no significant other and just no family. They have advice for dealing with crappy people. Also, ban them from your house indefinitely. That's a boundary you need to stick to. Hubby can see them somewhere else. That's just gross they would do that. I hope your hubby is sleeping on the couch. He sucks big time. What a loser. I hope he's sleeping on his sister's couch. Permanently. Not the a-hole. My blood went cold with rage at the thought of that ringtone playing at the funeral. I'm so incredibly sorry for the loss of your mother, and your husband's nightmare of a family ruining it. Thankfully, your mother's love and legacy will continue to live on untarnished in her children. But it may be time to kick husband to the curb. This. Hate to add to Opie's loss and mourning, but time to add hubby to the list of lost ones. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not opening up my home for my friend? I, 30 female, met Cassie, 30 female, fake name, when I was 7 years old and we became thick friends soon. I grew up in a very abusive Indian home with helicopter parents and was kicked out when I was 20 because I came home after curfew, 7 p.m. For non-Indians, it is unusual to work while in college and to stay away from home until you're married. I asked Cassie, who at the time was living alone in an apartment that her parents own, if I can move in with her for the time being. And she said, sorry, no, I want to experience living alone. I felt very hurt at the time and ended up couch surfing at some friends' homes and later moved in with my then boyfriend. Present situation, we don't talk much, just text each other sometimes. I live with my boyfriend in a 2-bedroom house with our dog, and she got married at 25 and is now 7 months pregnant. Her husband kicked her out for infidelity, and turns out the baby is not his. She has no place to go and asked me if she can stay for a while. The thing is, she doesn't work, is 7 months pregnant, and I don't know how long she'll stay as she can't tell her family back in India that she's getting divorced. Plus, I feel very salty about how she treated me back then. I said no, that it's not a very good idea, and she started screaming saying that she's pregnant, and I'm heartless. I hung up on her. Not a-hole considering how she treated you when you needed a home. Plus, it's on her for cheating on her husband. I wouldn't let that kind of drama in my house either, personally. And if the OP lets her stay, she'll probably never get rid of her and a child. In fact, she'll be left paying for the baby. Since she is a cheater, I wouldn't be surprised if she tried to cheat with OP's husband. Not a-hole. She wasn't a friend when you needed one, so she isn't a friend. Not a-hole. Just tell her you want the experience of living with your boyfriend. It's not fair that you should take the responsibility for another 2 people. Also, where's the baby daddy? Why can't you live with him? Can't live with baby daddy when you're single and ready to mingle until he finds out about your husband. Then no husband and no baby daddy. Not a-hole. You don't owe her anything. It was your friend who made life-changing and irresponsible decisions that caused her life to spiral. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for still not letting my sister into my house after she made me miss daughter's birth? Frankly, I don't know if I'm being an a-hole. Family seems to think I am, so just want to know what others here think. My sister, 25 female, was going to meet her dad. Not my dad, by the way. For the first time in almost 18/19 years, and she was really nervous. She asked me to go with her for support. He was staying at some hotel about 30 minutes away, and the whole ride over there, my sister had my phone to give me directions. My wife was calling me because she'd gone into labor. Then my mother-in-law was calling me too. My sister put my phone on Do Not Disturb without me knowing, and erased the notifications. I didn't even realize it until after we were leaving from having lunch with him an hour and a half later that my wife's been calling me. All my sister told me was I had a missed call, more like dozens. When I found out, I was yelling at her the whole ride to the hospital. She apologized many times. Her only excuse was this was a big emotional moment for her meeting her dad, and she was scared doing it alone knowing how her anxiety is. This was the only time they'd have to see each other since he was leaving in a few days and wouldn't be back for months. I really couldn't believe it. By the time we got there, my daughter had already been born a half hour. Don't get me wrong, I was so happy to know my daughter and wife were okay. But I was also devastated to have missed the birth of my first child. I couldn't look at my sister. All I told her was to get an Uber to take her home because I didn't want her near me right now. My daughter's almost 4 weeks old and almost everyone, vaccinated, has come to see her. Last weekend, my parents came over with my sister in the car, but I said I don't want her in my home right now. They got mad and left early. I keep hearing it from my family that I'm being completely unfair, treating my sister like an outcast but not letting her in my home. But I'm just still angry at her right now, and I don't think I have it in me to be in her presence. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. She knew exactly what she was doing. She made you miss something once in a lifetime,
And I can't imagine how important that must have been for you. And the fact she did it to go see her deadbeat father. That's tragic and ironic. And your parents can't even see it your way a little, it seems. You have every right to be furious. Her defense was she thought my wife would have been in labor for hours, or at least hoped she would, long enough for us to do both. I'm so furious. And it never occurred to her that you would want to be with your wife during labor? She's just trying to make excuses for her awful behavior. Not Dayhal. I think Opie should ask his family how he'd supposed to feel if something had gone wrong and he was sat at lunch somewhere. Thank goodness that it sounds like the birth was quick and straightforward, but it could so easily not have happened like that. It sounds like the family need to stop and take a moment to actually think through the gravity of what happened before demanding that Opie just move on because family. Not Dayhal. You know what else is a big emotional moment? The birth of your child. She didn't have the right to prioritize meeting her dad over you being present for a huge moment in your life. You can choose how to respond to that. They don't get to manage how you feel. A moment that Opie could only go through one time. Sister's dad wouldn't be back for months, sure. But he'd be back at some point, and she could see him then. Opie can't be there to see the birth of his first child twice. Not Dayhal. She didn't just make you miss the birth of your baby. She's personally responsible for your wife being denied the comfort of having her partner by her side during labor and delivery. Birth is still potentially deadly for both mothers and babies, and your sister risks your wife's and daughter's health and lives by interfering in your ability to be contacted. The fact that your family is sticking up for her makes me think she's got some sort of spoiled princess complex and will likely never apologize. And if she doesn't, your relationship with her is probably not salvageable. Last story. Am I the a-hole for saying no to my sister and her family staying with us until their house is safe to return to? My sister and her family had to leave their house because of a mold and bedbug issue. House is getting worked on. They need 6 weeks. She asked me the day before, like the day they found out about the second issue, if they could stay with me and my husband for 6 weeks. I said no. I knew it would cause blowback, but honestly, wasn't really expecting my parents to be so pissed. My sister was angry too. But the truth is, I could not live with her again. She gets on my nerves, and I never truthfully liked her as a person. I love her, but prefer not to be around her much. She's bossy as hell, and loves to get her own way. Sometimes not even communicating something that she's planning so you can't say no, or does something she wants knowing you won't want it and doesn't consider other people's taste. And I just know I would not be able to live with her again. When I moved out, it was such a relief to have space from her. And I know that I get more annoyed with her when we see each other more often. 2 years ago, we went on a family vacation. Me and my husband and kids, my sister, her husband and their kids, and our parents. And my sister decided, despite me and my husband saying no, to book everyone into this restaurant for a meal, and then complained when we didn't show up, which led to a fight where I told her I didn't care if she lost money. I told her I didn't like the food, and she was told clearly that we were not going. Looking back, I regret going, but I was hoping and trying to have things be better. But they weren't. Anyway, my parents are helping her pay for a hotel, but everyone is calling me an a-hole for not helping her, but especially her kids. Especially when I already know how long it will be for. My sister told me to screw myself, and my parents said they were ashamed of me. Our parents live out of state, hence them not staying here. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole at the word bedbug. Indeed. I wouldn't even let any of them in the door. Their stuff is likely infested. I stayed at a hotel for 6 days for a company-sponsored event out of state. I had all of these scratchy bleeding welts and identified them as bedbugs. I was livid, and my bites were horribly itchy. When I got home, my wife didn't even let me enter the house. I stripped down to underwear and my clothing went straight into the washing machine. Washed each load twice and tried to kill everything. Kept the suitcase outdoors in the shed for 6 months. Don't mess around with bedbugs. They itch worse than mosquitoes and are expensive to remediate. Not the a-hole. Even without the issues between the two of you, having their belongings in your home puts you at risk of getting a bedbug infestation. I wouldn't let them near me till they're bedbug free, to be honest. And tell your sister that she can bring her bed bugs and mold spores to a hotel, instead of bringing them to your house where they can start a fresh infestation. That, combined with a hostile relationship, is guaranteed to have you regretting this on the first day, and as you pay for pest control and mold remediation after they leave. Additionally, if there is such a problem with their house that requires them to be out for 6 weeks, what is their homeowner's insurance doing about this? My insurance will temporarily house me in a short-term rental in such an event. Why do they need to come stay with you? Don't set yourself on fire to keep your sister warm. Not today, Ho. Not today, Ho. Sounds like bedbugs and mold weren't the only toxic pests in that house. If your parents love her so much, they can house her in their state. The fact that they've decided to put her up in a hotel instead says it all. Not really. They live in another state, so can't let them stay. Her husband would be away from his job, the kids away from their school.